What you are about to see are two very hilarious stories about truck drivers that didn't know what they were supposed to do and got themselves in a whole bunch of trouble. First, in this story, this story is about a truck driver who is too lazy to apply his parking brake on a downhill grade, and he ends up losing his truck. It actually falls into a very steep valley, and he loses whatever is loaded onto the trailer as well, because the trailer was broken into three pieces. So, here's what happened. Okay, so here's what happened. He pulls up into a truck stop, and then he backs into a parking space that's on a slope. After he parks, he realizes that he has to apply the brakes, but for some reason, he's too lazy to apply the parking brakes, so instead he goes for a lever called the trailer hand valve, thinking this lever is supposed to keep the truck steady while he goes into the truck stop, which he only planned to be in for a few minutes. The thing is, what he finally realized was the trailer hand valve is pressurized, so if you let go of it, it releases the brakes. So he came up with this clever idea, or he thought it was clever anyway. He took a rubber band, tied one end of it to the trailer hand valve, and the other hand to a stationary part of the interior, hoping that would keep the lever steady. So, while he's in the truck stop, someone runs up to him and tells him, your truck is gone. So, he thinks that the truck gets stolen, so he calls the cops. And then the cops show up and tell him that they found the truck. And then he asks the cops, where's the truck then? So they pointed down the parking lot and said, it's right over there. The truck had rolled off the parking lot and down the hill, and it was leaning on the edge of this cliff, kind of like this. They were about to tow it up, but at the very last moment, the ground could no longer support the weight of the truck, and this happened. This is a true story, by the way. The trailer was broken into three separate pieces and could not be salvageable. Not only that, but the load was also unsalvageable. The truck, surprisingly, was still okay to drive after this, but the driver had to explain to the dispatcher and to the customer why the load could not be delivered to its destination, and he had to explain to the cops why there was a rubber band wrapped around his trailer hand valve. The moral to this story is, whenever you park your truck, always use the parking brake, and don't try to use the trailer hand valve, because it wasn't built for that. The trailer hand valve is only for testing the trailer brakes, which everyone should already know, but for some reason, some people still try to do this. This happened in Scranton, Pennsylvania, by the way. It happened on a certain truck stop that had a very steep parking lot. The next story isn't quite as funny because in this one someone actually dies. In this story, a truck is driving on the highway normally, and then they exchange drivers. The driver who was originally driving the truck goes to sleep. Spends 8 hours in the sleeper like he's supposed to, and then 8 hours later they change drivers again, and they start moving down the highway some more. At first the truck is moving normally, then later on down the road, The driver had spent 8 hours in the sleeper according to his logbook before the crash. So, what went wrong here? The answer is actually quite shocking. As it turns out, even 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 though there's no law that says you have to spend the entire 8 hours sleeping, this guy basically spent the entire 8 hours playing video games instead of getting any rest, and then he got behind the wheel of the truck directly after that, and that's what resulted in the crash. He had been driving for 8 hours, then he played video games for 8 hours, and then decided to drive for another 8 hours. But he didn't get far before this happened. This guy clearly was not thinking of his family when he made this decision to basically drive without any rest. And the insurance company also ended up suing his family because even though because they had found out that he had died in a very stupid way that could have been easily preventable. And how they found out is actually quite interesting. As it turns out, video games have logs too, so all they really had to do was look at his saved data and see exactly how long he had been playing the video game and what times he had been doing it. And as it turned out, he had been playing it the exact same times his logbook said he was in the sleeper.